Hi there, my name is Phil Ruge-Jones, and I'm the one officially listed on the thing, but I really have little that I have to do except convoke the people, and I'll preside over the conversation. So let me tell you what's going to happen so that you know. We have 5 storytellers. Our duo telling had to drop out because one of them got COVID, and so we lost Annette and Jim. Jim found another partner to be working across the hall with, so they're good. But so we're gonna go through, and the drill will be this. And I think the storytellers are hearing this for the first time too, so that's good that they know what it is. They'll come up. If they want to say something beforehand, they can. They don't have to, but sometimes people want to set a stage as a storyteller. And then they'll tell their story. And then they have to stay up here. And so this is the way I do storytelling coaching. They have to say one thing they liked about the way their performance went. All right? And they're the first one to do it. And once they do that, then we'll have maybe 4 or 5 other people in the room. Just give quick feedback, no long speeches, no dissertations. No, that was pretty good, but had you read my book, it would have been even better. None of that, right? And so I think the tellings are going to be maybe 5 minutes max. We have 5 of them, so that's 25 minutes of our time. We'll give some feedback. And then once all 5 tellers have gotten their feedback, so we tell, feedback, tell, feedback, tell, feedback. Then we'll invite them up, and I'll divide whatever time we have left in half. And the first half, the tellers will have a conversation with themselves. I struggled with that piece. I like what you did with it. How did you come up with that, right? Or you were wrong in this section. Why in the world did you think it should go that way? But they'll have a conversation where they can interact with each other. And then after half of the conversation time is done, then we'll open it up to you all for questions and feedback. Right?
Okay.
It's like opening music.
Opening music, the credits. If you go over your 5 minutes, you'll hear the music and you'll know that.
Now you should have told us that before.
So, yeah, I would like to invite everyone to silence their cell phones. Only if God calls should you pick up. So.
Storytellers are part of the biblical storytelling program? Or?
These storytellers are just wonderful people that I know, and they're I kind of invited several people, and these were the quickest to respond. And so, but they're all gifted tellers, and I knew they would understand that we're dealing with a text that has phenomenal complexities in it, and interpretively, ethically, spiritually to negotiate. And so that's why I'm aware of that. This wasn't chosen blind to that. And so it'll be interesting to see how they make their way through it. All right. And we're just going alphabetically by last name in an arbitrary way. And so Jason, you're first. I'm going to stand over here so I can.
Is it okay if I just use my phone to watch?
Yeah.
I'm not going to record it.
It's fine. It's being recorded. So.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yeah.
Sarai, Abram's wife, he hadn't been able to have children. Since she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar, she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from giving birth. So go into my servant. Maybe she can give me children." And Abram did just what Sarai said. When Abram had lived in the land of Canaan for 10 years, Sarai gave her servant, Hagar, to Abram as his wife. And he slept with her, and she became pregnant. When she learned she was pregnant, she lost all respect for her mistress. And Sarai said to Abram, "This harassment, it's your fault. I allowed you to embrace my servant, and when she realized she was pregnant, I lost her respect. Let the Lord decide who is right, you or me." And Abram said, since she's your servant, do what you want to her. And Sarai treated her harshly. Hagar ran away. The Lord's messenger found her at a spring in the desert, a spring on the road to Shur, and said, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where are you coming from? Where are you going? And Hagar said, from Sarai, my mistress, I'm running away. And the Lord's messenger said to her, return to your mistress. Submit to her. The Lord's messenger then also said, I will give you many children, so many that can be counted. The Lord's messenger said to her, now you have conceived, and you shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael. Ishmael will be a wild ass of a man. He'll fight everyone, they'll fight him. He'll be at odds with all his kin. And Hagar named the Lord who spoke to her. You are Elroy. Because she said, how can I still see after El Roy me? And therefore that well is called Beer Lahai. It's the well between Kadesh and Beer. Hagar gave birth to a son for Abram. He named him Ishmael. He was 86 years old when Hagar gave birth to Ishmael, which we knew how old she was. I struggle with this a lot. I hated what the Lord's messenger said, and so I tried. And this is supposed to be positive, so I'm not going to go there. I think I did a good job. I tried to. There are some parts of the Bible that I don't understand why they're there, and I could care less why they are there. And so it's like after this just powerful moment, I have to tell you that the well is called Beer Lahai. It's a well between Kadesh. I don't care. And I'm glad that I run through that a little bit to stick with the important parts.
Cool. And you can call on the people, so you can raise your hand if you have a. And then we focus on positive comments in this.
Yeah.
So I usually do this with beginning storytellers because the biggest obstacle to good storytelling is fear of storytelling. And so building people up is really a good way to move them to a new place. They'll learn what worked and do more of it instead of trying to fix the little thing that's broken.
Not your first time.
That's what I was- yeah.
I really liked how you embodied the creepiness of the story and didn't shy away from that. That helps.
It was that hesitation as the messenger. Like the messenger was struggling with what he had to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came across pretty clearly.
When you started to sing at first, I was like, but I liked it because it softened the blow of what you said after. Meaning, so what I heard was he's going to have worth.
Yeah.
And here's the rest of the story. But the singing made it easier. Didn't take away from what you said, but it made it easier. I heard it differently. Because that's a hard thing to say to someone. But I still saw value because you sung that first part.
Is that why you sang?
I was trying to get into the messenger's head, And I was just like, I feel like shit. I hate that I have to say this, and I just wanted her. I just wanted to like express to Hagar that like she wasn't alone. I mean, it's just I don't know what's going on there. It's just, I was just trying to embody the messenger. It's usually they're like just like here's the thing that I need to say to you. And I'm like, there's no way. Always that. Yeah.
I like the ambiguity when you pointed out that this was 10 years ago.
Mm.
It was wonderful.
Mm.
I heard the irony. I don't know that I ever heard that irony before about having the baby for and then naming him Ishmael, which is what message she got from the messenger. That's sort of a little bit in there. I appreciated that.
Yeah. It sounds to me like now you shall bear a son and you shall call him Jesus.
I almost thought you went there.
Yeah,
When I
yes,
heard that, I'm
it
I
like,
did.
thought that
no,
too, but then it just didn't make sense. I'm like, would he be forgetting because it's having future like that? I was gonna be like, gee, Ishmael.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Let me check and see if there's anyone else.
Happy.
So, and I should have told the storytellers, sometimes people want to go out of the room. So you need to realize how difficult it is to have a story internalized and hear someone present it and say, oh, maybe I can incorporate that into my telling on the fly. And so if anyone needs to like leave the room right before they're telling, except for Kathy Colmer. Yeah, you don't have to do it. So Kathy, you're up.
Whew.
I'm feeling weak in the knees. I was thinking about what Tracy said when she was on her presentation today, the play part. And how sometimes sometimes the play means play with. And I can't say that I was really playing with it, but I heard it in my head a little bit. I'm extremely
Take your time. You're in charge.
Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn or settle on the far side of the sea, even there, your hand will help guide. Now, Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but Sarai had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So Sarai went to her husband Abram and said to Abram, the Lord has not seen fit for me to bear a child. So go into my slave and sleep with her. Perhaps she can provide me with a child. And Abram did as Sarai said. So when Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her Egyptian slave, and gave her to Abram as his wife. Abram slept with Hagar, and Hagar became pregnant. And when she realized she was pregnant, she began to look down on her mistress and to treat her with contempt. Sarai went in to Abram and said, this is all your fault. I gave my slave to you and I let her sleep with you. And now she is looking down on me and treating me with contempt. And Abram said to Sarai, look, she's your slave. You deal with her as you
see fit. And Sarai began to treat Hagar harshly, so harshly that Hagar ran away from her. But the angel of the Lord found her. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn or settle on the far side of the sea, even there you will see, even there you will be. And the angel of the Lord found Hagar by a spring of water in the wilderness on the road to shore. And the angel of the Lord said to Hagar, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where are you coming from and where are you going? And Hagar said, I am running away from my mistress, Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said to her, go back and submit to her authority. And the angel of the Lord continued and said, I will give you more descendants than you can count. And the angel went on to say, you are pregnant and you will give birth to a son and you will name him Ishmael, which means God hears. For God has heard the cries of your anguish. He will be a wild ass of a man. He will fight against everybody and everybody will fight against him. He will live at odds with his family. Hagar there. And there named the God who has spoken to her. You are El Roy, the God who sees me. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence where you cannot see, where you cannot be? You are the God who sees me. Have I really seen God and am still alive after seeing him? And the well was called Bir Lahai Roy, which means the well of the one who sees me. Hagar gave birth to a son for Abram. And Abram named him Ishmael. Hagar gave birth to Ishmael when Abram was 86 years old. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee? Presence. If I go into the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, if I rise up on the wings of the dawn, you are there. And if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there you see, even there you be, even there your hand will guide me. You are the God who sees.
Oh my God, my God. I'm praising, I ain't raising my hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this is your turn. You're- Oh, man, what didn't you?
Didn't go like that in front of the mirror. I guess the part, and I would hope that from your response, that is confirmation of it. And I want to thank you, Simone, because I had that in my head last night, and it came to my, I told them, I hate it when the Lord give me something, he mess up my plan tonight. Give me something different to try. And so I'm always kind of timid about that. But that sense of, here was this slave woman, and that's the one that God went to see. And it was more of the sense of, no matter who you are, what your circumstances are in life, God sees us all. And when you did that, we were listening to a Bible study by Judy Fentress Williams on Hagar. And it became my confirmation, because she was saying what I didn't know how to articulate, but what I had as a feeling in my spirit. So I pray that that was what you received from that, because I felt it in a way I hadn't felt it before as I was telling it, that it was God really, really, I don't care who you are, where you are, sees us. I'm supposed to.
Yeah, you call on like 5 people.
You must be a dancer. That was so well
Yes.
choreographed. Every this way and that way and behind and before, so on. Beautifully done. Choreographed.
So much to say, but I'd say this. I saw the swinging between I heard, the hearing and the seeing. For me, there were like two different paradigms blending into just one.
Yeah.
And that kind of came together with the fluidity of, where can I go from your presence? I have goose flesh even as I talk. So beautiful, so beautiful. Oh my God.
I like the crescendos within the settling. And I like that it's solid.
You had a wonderful way of making this bigger story and the others. But right away, peripheral. Thank you. And keeping her central. Roy, that the God seeing her and being able to acknowledge that. That was really good.
I appreciated, well, first I appreciated, like, that was church for me.
Yeah. Yeah, say that again.
But I appreciated you empowered Hagar. Hagar's not always empowered when we hear her, but you empowered her. And I thought that you treated the characters equally. Like everyone came differently, but you treated them equally. But I just so appreciated that she was empowered through the way you embodied her. She had power. And she knew she could. And she knew she had power.
And I just wonder if knowing that she had power and the encounter that she had with God did not make it easier to go back and do what she had to do.
Right.
Because when you done seen God on the road in the wilderness.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yes, wait. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I just wanted to say your passion and your expression, your varied inflection, knowing when to pause. It really brought the emotion of all of the characters forth. And that was powerful. That's why I think we all.
I feel like I don't know the story because I've heard too much.
Sarai, Abram's wife, had been unable to bear any children. She had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has prevented me from having any children, but to my servant Hagar, maybe I can have children through her. And Abram agreed. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened when Abram had lived in Canaan about 10 years. So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar and she became pregnant. But when she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress Sarai, looking down on her as if she were less. Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault." Okay, I put my servant into your arms. But now that she is pregnant, she despises me. The Lord will judge who is wrong, you.
Or me.
Abram said, "She's your servant, so do to her as you see fit." Then Sarai forcefully and unjustly degraded Hagar, treating her so harshly that she finally ran away. An angel of the Lord found her near a spring in the wilderness on the road to shore. And the angel said to her, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from? And where are you going?" Hagar said, "Running away from my mistress, Sarai." The angel said, "Return to your mistress, submit to her authority, and I will give you more children than you can count." You're pregnant now, right? "And you will give birth to a son, and you shall call him Ishmael, which means God hears, for indeed the Lord has heard your cry of distress. The son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against everyone, and everyone will be against him. He will live in open hostility with all his relatives." Thereafter, Hagar used a different name to refer to the Lord who had spoken to her. She said, "You are El Roi, the God who sees." She also said, "Have I truly seen the one who truly sees?" Now that well was called Be'er Lahai Roi, which means the well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found today between Kadesh and Rephidim. So God gave Abram, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. right, this is very different than practicing from a mirror. How nice to have some fun. I feel like one of the complicated things about the story is the power differential. So I really try to show how that, because it changes a lot in the course of the story and sort of doesn't change. Right? So I like that. I liked it too because I knew who was on first and who was on second. Gotta keep your people in the same places, right? Yeah.
I appreciate it because what it opened up for me is Sarai's vulnerability. I appreciate how vulnerable her position is.
I love just the continuation of after the horrible thing. Like I love you just jump. I love your transition, by the way, wherever you're using.
Yeah. New living trend.
And you jumped ahead just to be like, you know, return, submit to her. I'm gonna give you more children count. That was so powerful. I felt like it was such a good choice.
Sorry, my comment follows up with Jason's one. In terms of what I noticed with your telling was that the reason Hagar was contemptuous to Sarah was because she was pregnant. She had just the one baby. But then the promise that she's going to have so much more than just that one baby is like, don't because of this small victory, then break off your relationship with this person because you're going to have more. So I saw the connection between the contempt that Hagar had for Sarah and the prophecy that she would have more children.
And I loved how you expressed Hagar's reverence to God after having heard the messenger's message to her. And it's that in spite of the fact that it was good news and bad news too, she just, I don't know, it just seems like she was just so grateful. I could feel that.
One more. Did you have any other?
Yes, I did. And I apologize if I'm repeating. I can't really hear what other people are saying. But with just a look, you gave, you told us that there could have been something more between Abram and Hagar than Hagar, than Abram. Which would give Hagar some reason to think that she was.
That's good.
Thank you.
Sarah's ready to bring us home.
Yeah. This is my first in-person festival gathering.
Oh, come on now.
Fun time. My heart rate's gone up 10 points every starting around 45 to 88. Right.
I'll never have a better audience.
I don't know if you've heard. Abram and Sarah were having trouble in the baby making department. Sarai could not give Abram a child, but she had a slave, an Egyptian, Hagar. So she goes to Abram. You know what she says? See, the Lord has prevented me from having children, so I want you to go into my slavery. Maybe we can build our family with her. He listened to his wife. So after Abram had lived in the land of Canaan for 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her slave girl, and gave her to Abram as a Abram used her. And when she saw that she had conceived, Hagar looked with contempt on her mistress. So Sarai goes to Abram. You know what she says? You did this to me. I gave you my slave girl. And now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. The Lord judge between you and me. Abram says to his wife, Sarai, she is your slave girl. Do with her whatever you think is best. So you know that Sarai dealt harshly with Hagar, and Hagar ran away. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness. And he came and said to her, Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where have you come from? Where are you going? And Hagar answered, I am running away from that mistress of mine. The angel of the Lord looked on her and said, Hagar, return to your mistress. Submit to her. And I promise you, I will make your descendants so many that they will not be able to be counted. You will bear a son, and his name will be called Ishmael. God hears, for the Lord has given heed to your affliction. Not gonna lie, he's gonna be a wild donkey of a man. With his hand against everyone, everyone's hand against him. And his kin, he will live at odds with them. For all is Hagar gave a name to the Lord who spoke to her in the wilderness. She said, you are the one who sees me. For I have seen the one who sees me. She went back to her. She gave Abram a son. Abram named that son Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old and she gave him Ishmael.
All right.
What did I like? I liked thinking about who would tell this story. And to me, it was like church gossip. Took a while to get there, but that's like, I love the idea of this thing. Sometimes gossip is just plain toxic, but sometimes it tells you things that you need to know. And it felt like a story that told you something you needed to know, but it felt super gossipy, and I kind of enjoyed pretending to be a gossip.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as my comment. It felt like we were like getting the tea. Which I like because gossip is like a space. It's a story about women, and gossip is often dismissed by especially patriarchy as like nonsense, but like very important like knowledge happens in women's gossip circles. So I liked that because it felt like the right kind of setting for this story because it is traditionally a location of women's power.
I love how you connected it to God's promise to Abraham when he started.
I like, well, the story with the gossip thing. I don't know if this is why you did this, but I like how you went from sitting down to standing up. And it moved it from, you had this intimate, gossipy family world, he said she, and sleeping with each other, and then she's out in the wilderness and she's talking to an angel. And suddenly this personal thing becomes a cosmic event. And then you sit back down when it comes back to the family.
So storytelling is communal, but you told that in such a way that even though I'm here with everyone else, I felt like it was you and me. I mean, your intent, what you intended to do, you did. I mean, I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I didn't, you did. I felt like this just me and her,
You
me in
had
the
everybody.
kitchen. Yeah, I mean, but it really did feel like, it felt very personal. It was really cool.
You had everybody's individual ear because
Yes.
I was gossip. But I also like at the very end, the angel gave all the message, and then Hagar got very reflective. And Hagar probably thinking, because the one thing that was the gift of God that all women wanted were more children, more children. And so she was gonna get many, many children. And she reflected on that, like, all right, I'm in a bad situation, but it may be a good deal.
That was really empowering to Hagar, to just have that pause of, I'm gonna decide whether I want to agree with this angel.
What is interesting to me in terms of hearing everybody's story, the way you told it is so relevant to today because there are women who are barren who seek surrogacy or other means of becoming pregnant. And some of what women now experience, you could feel from the way she presented that. But God still sees them. And I think that message for them in this age is
Just an observation. I love the way that you had the angel close to Hagar. Usually, angelic talk is like you're up there and I'm here. You know, oh, wow, I'm like, yeah. But this was like, let's just do this together. That came across so well.
Great. Go ahead, John.
As a man, who started out as a gossip, but I got caught up saying, I want to hear it. Am I supposed to hear it? That's cool. You know, you do me in that.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I can't wait to tell it on Sunday.
So what we're gonna do is, you have two options if you're not one of the storytellers. If you're an introvert and longing for a little personal time, you can just kind of close your eyes and reflect on all the multiple hearings you had. If you want to have a conversation with somebody, get in a group of 2 or 3, and meanwhile, the storytellers will set themselves on stage. I'll give you 5 minutes so everybody gets to say something about the story, even if it's not heard in the whole group. And then we'll go to the panel for our conversation. You all need to, the storytellers need to be up here. All right, we're gonna shift gears. Sorry about that. This is a great exercise if you're in a storytelling group to have multiple tellings, and you increase the repertoire of ideas that people have of options they can take when they're performing. I used to do it with 15 students in a row, the same story in one day, a shorter story. And it's fascinating. And tell people that I told these people, don't be shy, be bold in your decisions, right? Go for it so we get great diversity. And they totally took me up on that, so I appreciate that. So so we'll go about 14, 15 minutes with you all talking to each other in front of us. So if there's questions or comments, I know you already started doing that without anyone observing you, but if you want to go back to that and let us overhear some of the process you went through and what decisions you made and how somebody solved something that you were struggling with. So does one of you want to address either a particular person or the group?
I would say at least something I can respond to. The reason why I was trying to be sure I characterized Sarah, I guess with the past way someone shared observations, is because I was thinking with Sarah is barren and in that society, that was definitely when we had children, when you don't have children, people tend to question or you not validate, right? And so thinking about that and thinking about, this, they know what was promised, and here she still doesn't have children. And just, trying to think, how do we make this happen? You know, and so that was the reason I approached it that way. I was interested in seeing everyone's telling of the angels telling Hagar that Ishmael was going to be a wild mule of a man. Because I was thinking, like, when I was, preparing, thinking, this is not really good. This is not too favorable, right? And just thinking, like, how everyone handled that. So it was really good to see. It was a variety. Everyone handled it very differently. And so that was really good to see. But that was where I was kind of struggling with, like, how do I pitch that? Because that's really like, oh, yeah. They can really say that.
Right. Right.
Nobody went with the translation, he's gonna be a badass. That's kind of what I think. He's gonna be a wild dog, he's gonna be a badass of a man. And that has less of a negative, I mean, like, you can say that, that's what he's gonna need in his life.
Yeah. But then the part about he's gonna fight everyone and they're gonna fight him and he's gonna be against, he's gonna be an odd devil.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and that Hagar doesn't say anything in response to that.
Yeah.
She just names God. The only person to do that, by the way,
Yeah.
in the entire
Yeah.
Bible. Am I wrong? She's the only person.
The
who
only
names
woman, yeah,
God.
you're right.
Yeah.
Like Moses doesn't name God. Abraham doesn't. They all are like yes, yes, but Hagar is like,
right.
I'm gonna name you.
Yeah.
You know, like.
As a pet name for God.
Yeah.
And Jacob wrestles and tries to get David can't.
I do think that wrestling with what could possibly be good news and that, because the messenger of the Lord does not show up and typically there's good news in there somewhere, messages from God move things forward typically in some way. And so I was wrestling like, what's good about this? And for me, like for a woman who has been forced into sexual bondage with an 85-year-old man, learning that her son is going to make trouble for his family for the rest of his life, that sounds like damn good news to her. I think she might
Karma, man.
I personally thought I was like, I think that's why she went back. She got a promise that this wasn't going to just get whitewashed over and be easy. Like they were going to have to deal with what they did the rest of his life.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and Ishmael and Isaac.
Yeah, for the rest of Ishmael's life, he was going to remind them of what they did.
Right.
And it was somebody Graham's fault because he's the one that screwed her.
Seriously. So I think for her, that might be good news. So I was trying to think, how could you tell that like good news?
That's good.
Yeah.
I think we showed I think it was amazing how many different choices we all made. In the same story, which is just a reminder to me again of how powerful these stories are and how like the story is just the beginning. Once you get it inside a storyteller, it becomes something different. And so it's like, and we're 5 different people, so you're gonna hear 5 different stories, and I think you did.
Indeed, we did.
I was thinking about the statement that Sarah made about in gossip, how oftentimes there's something there you need to hear, even though you may not like the packaging. And I was thinking, and along with what I heard on that commentary, is that what we see in the Bible, even the hard part especially, may not be what we want to see, but it gives us a sense of how we got to where we are. And you see the choices that were made, and every time, as it was with the prophets, every time you see the bad news, you have the opportunity to make some different choices going forward. But unfortunately, we live with the consequences of those choices that were made before us. And it's kind of in line with what you were saying also, Sarah, because the people who are the descendants of Ishmael are still warring against the people who are descendants of Abraham and Sarah. And so the truth is there, but and it is because ultimately of the choices that the parents made to interrupt God's plan and do it on their own.
Very true, yeah, that's good.
One of the, I
really like the language stuff, and so I've done a lot of digging in what the original languages were, and one of the, I think it's significant that we miss in English, a couple things, the promise is the same, Abraham and
Hagar.
Hagar
Yeah,
get the
same promise, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And Sarah, Sarah.
Yeah.
We were ABS. But another thing that we missed that I tried to show in some of my power differentials is the way that Sarai treats Hagar is the same thing that Pharaoh does to the Israelites. And that's more than just treated her harshly in my mind. So,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I added a whole sentence to be able to describe how awful that was. And of course, that happens in a different book later. But just if you know the stories, you kind of hear those echoes coming back around. And also, to me, justified, well, if the Israelites got to leave that harsh treatment, so does Hagar, the Egyptian, get to leave that harsh treatment. So I think those are some kind of important linguistic things.
You've added some context to me for why I was struggling with why it matters that she's an Egyptian. And
I always
wondered, and that to me gives me a reason to care about that detail.
Well, and I think another part of her being an Egyptian is that the God who sees her is not necessarily her God.
Right.
I mean, so for God to pay attention to somebody who maybe hasn't paid attention to God before, because that's not her culture. And maybe she's sort of adopted the culture because she's now living enslaved with Hagar and Sarai. But that's even more, I mean, that's kind of a Jonah moment for me, that everybody matters to God.
Well, I was struck by the fact that the angel of the Lord doesn't come to anybody else but her.
Yeah.
Like they're all working around the edges, like yelling at each other about stuff, and God's messenger is showing up to Hagar. She's the center of
And
the
knows
story.
her name,
Yeah.
and knows
Who she is.
where she's been and where she's going.
Even though you're asking the question, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made him play dumb, like,
Yeah.
where you been?
On the
But-
Exodus story too, like then God hears the cry of the Israelites,
Right.
just like God hears Ishmael.
Yeah.
or God hears Jacob.
How about if we open it up?
Sure.
I just wanted to mention one of the reasons Egypt might matter. Some people think it's a synchronistic or a blending of Hebrew and Egyptian traditions when she calls him Elroy. Because Ra, the god Ra. And if you ever see the Masonic symbol that's taken from Egypt, it's got the eye at the top of the pyramid. So it could be that she's claiming El, which is an Israel thing, and bringing her own stuff to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess I get a call on people for now, so we'll go here, here, and here, all right?
So this is maybe a question for Kathy, but for all of you. So I've been challenging myself to read womanist theology. I kind of moved through bodies of theology genre at a time. And so one of the books that is on a book list for me to read is Sisters in the Wilderness by Dolores Williams. And it is all about the Hagar story. And so I wondered, Kathy, in particular, if that was a source for you, or if womanist theology was a source for your interpretation. Because I went back and read the summary of the book after experiencing your telling, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to buy it for sure. And I will not be able to unsee your embodiment of this story and Hagar ever again. And so that was my question. If you had dug into womanist theology,
I just read a little of that, not specifically womanist theology, but that it may be reflected in some of what I read on the story. The lady, what's her name? She's the Episcopal priest in Texas.
Will Gaffney, yeah.
Will Gaffney, I read a little bit of her on Hagar.
Okay.
And I'd love to see the book that you're talking about, and then just listening again to, I guess what really struck me in the pieces that I read, I think what you saw was being influenced by that rather than specifically looking
Thank you.
So, I named somebody who gets to go next and then you're gonna go.
So, your name is Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm horrible with names.
No, it's
I was really struck by your statement that the naming of the place felt, I guess, unnatural. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to comment that text, I think, is two parts. One, from a storyteller perspective, that's where the narrator pops out as the narrator in the story, which is really interesting, I think, from a storytelling perspective. And then the other is it's the bookmark when connecting Hagar to the land and naming the land connected to her. And so I always thought that was the incredible, powerful statement out of the whole story that makes her permanent, more permanent even than her children and her children's children would be.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and I spoke out of turn with I didn't have anything positive to say about mine, and so I was trying to think of something positive. It's no non-important part of the story, but yeah, that's really good.
You can't do every part with equal importance.
Nope.
And so sometimes you kind of have to have the section you decide to toss away.
True.
Yes. Each of you own the story. And my question is, you can use a combination of techniques, talk about that, we read about it. So what's primary for you, or do you use a combination? Each one of you own combination to own the story as you practice to go whatever. Is there a major one, or repetition, or episodes divided, or
So when I was
words?
in the ADS class, one of the things that a colleague of mine in that class did was she would record herself telling the story once, and then she would listen to herself over and over again. And I was like, that's intimidating and terrifying to listen to yourself. But I tried it, and it actually has really helped me get the story in. And then, and the more I listen to myself and try to tell with myself, like the more I get thinking about. So I mean, there's like, for me at least, there was the point where I was trying to decide what the word, like what choices about words are going to be important, because I don't find any translation to be like fully like authentic to what I see in the text. So I often go and look at the Hebrew in this case and think about whether there are any words that I would do differently. So use was a word that I chose instead of went into, because it felt more, it felt like it got at what I was, but then listening to myself until I felt like I could drop that audio and just like play. So I will, that's the way I worked on it personally. Got it in and then played with it, tried different things and looked at myself in the mirror. Hated every minute of it. Takes a few minutes.
Actually, I'm it's similar to Sarah. I have to hear my voice, even in the beginning. I read it first, and I'm just listening to it a lot, and then I start to break the episode. So that's how I mechanically do it. But I look at the story. I think of every person and try to think of the story from their perspective. I mean, even one time thinking, but this is a stretch. I'm thinking maybe people like, what would Ishmael think about? Ishmael think about his own story, if he heard it. Because that kind of helps me see every character in the story. But definitely hearing it helps. It didn't play out this way in front of you all, but but definitely hearing myself helps me catch certain things. But it never shows up quite the same way sometimes in person. Because it's just kind of interesting. Once you get in front of people, just in general, it shows up differently. But yeah, it does, because it's the energy. So that's always interesting. But I was telling well, I'll say that for later. But yeah, that's it.
It's your birthday, Janet, so you gotta go next.
Happy
Oh,
birthday.
I'm sorry. We're gonna go next after the all.
For me, it's the opposite. I do not listen to myself.
Yeah, I don't either.
Very rarely do I do that. And I don't know if this is a good thing or not, or whether it's helpful to anybody, but I really have to feel the story. Yeah. And what I express in the telling of it. is how it comes through me. And that may not mean anything, but sometimes I do. And I really wanted a song at the beginning to be done with it because for me, I can't sing. The only time anybody let me sing is when I'm telling a story. But if I can find a good song that kind of sums up what's in the story, that helps to center me at the beginning of the telling. And then as a former English teacher, I'm always trying to hook it together.
Yeah.
And that'll give me a thread to hook it with. But I could not find a song for this, but I felt it as a song and a prayer. And when the Psalm 139 piece came to my mind, and what I saw how it was coming out of me, it was as though it would have been a song, and that was the chorus. And where does the chorus come? That's why it came back in, as though we were doing.
Yeah.
So it felt like, even though I didn't feel that way in the beginning, but it came to, as the more I spent time with it, it came to feel like that in me.
It was divine. There's no question.
Yeah, and I just like how the song kept coming back in, almost like interrupting sometimes, especially at the end of the movie. So it's interrupting, saying, hey, there's nowhere you can go, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
really good. Oh.
So you use 139, Psalm 139 as your connecting
Yeah,
chorus that
yeah,
just kept
yeah,
pulling everything together.
yeah, yeah.
There is a song called Hagar's Blues. I want to check out.
For me,
Songs I sing don't belong anywhere else.
I was surprised that.
Where do they come from and where they going, they ain't coming.
I'm surprised you didn't say that. Normally you sing in every song, every story. I sang and you didn't.
Right.
I've never heard Jason sing though.
This is, I just carry this around, right? So, and then, once I get it into whatever kind of format I want, that breaks it out, gets rid of the verses, all that stuff. Then I'll read through it once, and then like, I just put it back in my pocket, I walk around and I try to tell as much of it as I can. I start off with maybe 1 or 2% of it. But by the end, like, I don't need the paper anymore, and I think there's something, for me personally, I can't just repeat it in my head, I've gotta move. I've gotta move, so I figure out like, how does this sound in my body? How would I say it? Where am I looking? What's happening? So like, that gets me, and once I can see the world that I'm in, then that's even more, then it's just like, it's like Sarah said, then you learn, or like any good jazz performance, like you learn the song and then you play. You play off of it.
For me, it's making a connection with the story that matches something in my life. That's how I can make it my story and not somebody else's story. So like for this one, I thought about, when have I been a woman without any power? Well, lots of examples.
You're supposed to say she's your slave.
I think we all did that.
Don't do the April thing, no.
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Or when I feel like I have been wronged, but I know I'm right. So what does that indignation look like in a story?
And by the way, that was one of your best lines. I'm right. I mean,
You got a between you right now.
So just kind of making not just a theoretical connection of what is it like to be indignant, but when is the time that I felt that way, and how can I channel that feeling? Because I feel like in this story, there's so much going on that I can't stop and say, by the way, this means A, B, C, D, or remember the story over here that connects A, B, C, D. So how can I keep the words that are there and fill them up with all this other background stuff? And so the emotional connection is part of how I do that.
Amen.
Okay, Janet.
Janet.
I thought you said Janet.
Yeah, Janet, my bad.
Okay.
Sarah faked me out without needing to, because we have in our church a midwife doula. And as she had told the whole story, and Hagar goes back, she's an unwilling surrogate. And as you sat down, you began to say the words, and she gave a son. So in my mind, I saw you actually in a birthing chair, giving the
Okay.
but because you're an unwilling servant, taking that baby back. And it plays into that emotionalism that this isn't your child, but this is your child. You didn't realize it, but I went, damn, that's strong.
Well, now I know.
I know, I'm excited.
When were the times when you're like, the audience response was like, didn't see that coming? Or maybe you've experienced yourself doing something that you really not done in rehearsal, but the audience kind of brought it out of you.
I feel like more than anything, I had to like hold on to what I had worked through for myself while I listened to really good versions of the story that I told by other people. I wanted to change what I had practiced, and I was like, if I do that, I'm going to like miss a connection. And I sort of did. I skipped the verse.
I totally skipped the verse too. I didn't even tell you why you called this one.
But
Oh.
and it was so hard not to be affected by other people's choices,
Right,
which
yeah.
were all good choices and were reminders that I had made choices. So you know, it was great watching having people to respond to what I was doing. Was cool.
There's nothing like it.
But it's been 3 years.
There's nothing like being, I mean, and as Phil said, that, yeah, these kind of audiences are the best audiences that you'll ever have. If you're thinking about telling a story, tell one here, because this is the best audience.
And it sure beats telling it to an iPhone. Or Zoom. Oh my God. I needed that.
Well, I put Jason, yours out of all the stories was the most, you had the most pauses, the slowest kind of, and I'm wondering what tricks you might have used just to do that. I always find I'm telling it too fast, or I want to get it out there, and I just thought, wow, she's doing a great job of saying something and letting it sit, and then say some more. I'm wondering how you dealt with that, or did you have to master that, or what?
Thanks, Paul. Pam Farrow. Just watch her trying to be out. I hated telling it. I feel like I didn't belong. Let me say it this way. This story never felt comfortable to me. Saying it, I don't feel like it was my story to tell, and there's a lot about it. And so it's funny. Maybe I was a narrator. And so when I got to the narrator part, I'm like, this doesn't matter because I don't matter. Like none of this matters, right? And so I was taking pauses, I think, because I was trying to say the words, like, and I was trying to, I don't know. I think maybe the thing that was different about a live audience, live studio television audience, is I'm just all up in my feels, and I'm turning 40. I'm just crying all the time now. So I was just very. And this is a woman's story, right? And so maybe like the only man in the story is Abram, and I have no passion for him. Yeah, maybe the narrator, yeah. And so I'm just like, I felt overwhelmed, and I don't know.
I think Sarah just said reluctant.
But we needed you as a male to tell the story as well. We needed.
I agree with that 100%, because we had women, and of course, many here, they're women, because we could get with like, and Abram, you really did do that. And yet we had the male, which was very hesitant the whole time, and constantly, not reflective, but the hesitancy and pauses, it had its own voice.
And I think that hesitancy also sort of flags that there are problems in the story and it shouldn't just be glossed over, because you can tell a problematic story as if it is not problematic in any way, and that just like perpetuates the harm. So to have it pause, it really makes the audience stop and think about like, oh, like your visual, like the fact that we could tell you were uncomfortable with the story made it like opened the door for reflection. Like, why is he uncomfortable? Oh, this is probably why. And I think that's especially important when you're like coming into like a woman's story and that kind of thing. So I really like.
And I love
I loved how you added the comment on the end about I wish we knew how old she was.
Yeah.
We talked about that before, and it just gave a whole new dynamic to the story.
Yeah, and it just felt like the story was all about women.
It's a perfect button.
And so it's like, why do I not know? Why do we not know? What? I mean, I get it. Abraham was 86 and he had sex with her. But like, I mean, was she 16?
Yeah,
Like,
Like,
yeah, which I saw that. In the,
younger.
I saw that, I think, in RSV.
Since you said that, you guys have used variety of translations. But what stood out to me the most was like the angels trying to rub salt into Hagar's wounds by addressing her as Hagar, slave girl of, so and so. Why do that? Why don't you? She's already in distress. Why do you want to bring it in all the more harshly? Every single translation said that. Like reminding her of her place, and how fair can God be when He does things like that? That's what comes to mind.
Workshops don't end when the workshop ends, but this one's ending, so that means you can have these conversations in the hallway. Go sit down by people at lunch and have the conversation. If you want to check out Dolores Williams' book, it is on audiobook if you're one of those kind of people, so you can listen to it. That makes it. It's called Sisters in the Wilderness. And do the evaluations. Thelma.
I lost my brass bracelet. Dropped it somewhere if you happen to find
Yeah,
it.
it was in the hallway on a table.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, okay, good. I don't want you to lose it.
Thank you, everybody.
Really good.
It's around 6:30 after lunch. Oh, you're right.
Can we just leave them here?
Thank you so much.
I saw it and I went, that is either Thelma's or somebody Thelma knows. I take I think this is the one.
Yeah.
For me, it's
Yeah, I left my two cups in your closet, so I'll get my. Because I was like, oh, I just want to bring it down here. Yeah. Oh.
I'm taking comment sheets over here, wherever you left them. Good.
That's pretty good stuff.